Hey guys! Today, we're going to be talking about just a few of the most influential early feminist writers. First up, we have none other than Abigail Adams. Most of what we know about her convictions is found in her correspondence with her husband, John Adams. When the two of them were in different cities, they exchanged countless letters. John regarded Abigail as his intellectual equal, and despite the fact that women were not permitted to participate in government at the time, John often asked his wife for her opinion on political matters. Abigail Adams responded in the hopes of influencing her husband, knowing that he would be one of the men responsible for drafting the laws of the new nation. In 1776, she famously urged him to, quote, "remember the ladies," warning that if he and his male colleagues did not, there would come a time when the women would rise up in rebellion against the patriarchy. Olympe de Gouges, a contemporary of Abigail Adams and best known for her Declaration of the Rights of Woman, stands as an embodiment of early feminist thought in revolutionary France. A bold vocal advocate for gender equality in a time when women were expected to remain in their designated sphere, Olympe de Gouges declared that there were no rights, privileges, or freedoms which were given to men that should not also be given to women. In her writings, she calls for equal representation in all societal positions, the right to vote and receive an education, as well as an equal claim to property within marriage and the right to divorce one's husband. Olympe de Gouges urged women to recognize the injustices that men had committed against them by denying them these rights, and lamented that the French Revolution's abolition of old prejudices was not extended to women. Next up is Elizabeth Cady Stanton. In 1848, Elizabeth Cady Stanton drafted the Declaration of Sentiments, a document calling for women's rights, strategically modeled after the Declaration of Independence. It was signed at the Seneca Falls Convention in New York, the first women's rights convention held in the United States. Among the grievances listed in the Declaration of Sentiments was coverture. Coverture was the patriarchal tradition by which a single woman lost all claims to her own money and/or property once married. She lost her individual legal identity as well, becoming synonymous with her husband. A close study of her biography reveals that Elizabeth Cady Stanton was so opposed to patriarchal traditions that she informed her fiancé and the priest who was to marry them that if the word obey was not removed from their vows, she would refuse. At first, the priest was hesitant to change the wording, but her fiancé insisted, explaining that she was completely serious about refusing to marry him if he didn't. Susan B. Anthony, a contemporary and friend of Elizabeth Cady Stanton, was arrested for voting in the presidential election of 1872, half a century before women won the right to vote with the passage of the 19th Amendment. However, Susan B. Anthony believed that as citizens of the United States, women already had the right to vote and didn't need to wait for an amendment to cast their ballots. She wrote an article titled, "Is it a crime for a citizen of the United States to vote?" to defend her position, referencing the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, and the Constitution of the State of New York to strengthen her argument. In her view, women merely needed to recognize that as citizens of the United States, they were rightfully entitled to cast their ballots in any election, with or without an amendment. In 1913, Jane Addams presented a hypothetical scenario titled "If Men Were Seeking the Franchise," in which the genders are reversed. Society is matriarchal, and the men are the ones asking for the right to vote. Jane Addams asserts that in this scenario, men would be denied suffrage on account of their propensity for violence, disregard for childcare, and irresponsible treatment of the labor force. She then goes on to highlight the objections that female suffragists were often given. How might the men react if women argued that politics would corrupt them, or that male suffrage would only double the vote because they would undoubtedly vote the same way their wives and mothers did? Jane Addams notes that such ridiculous arguments would only be made if the women in her hypothetical scenario regarded the men as second-class citizens. A clear commentary on the way that women were viewed in reality. Interestingly, Jane Addams didn't argue that men and women were equal. Rather, she argued that women should be granted the right to vote by virtue of the fact that women were different from men. Giving them the right to vote would improve both government and society because women would make better decisions at the ballot box. In her 1851 speech titled "Ain't I a Woman?", abolitionist and women's rights advocate Sojourner Truth boldly makes one of the earliest observations of misogynoir in the United States. Misogynoir is a term referring to the compounded prejudice that Black women face as a result of their unique intersection of race and gender, meaning they experience both racism and sexism. While she didn't use this exact term, Sojourner Truth's speech clearly highlights the ways in which Black women were treated as less than white women in spite of their shared womanhood. She points out that although women had yet to win many legal rights, white women were at least treated with more respect than Black women were, even in the North. Sojourner Truth thus called for equal treatment of women of color in addition to demanding gender equality. She ends her powerful speech with the words, quote, "If the first woman God ever made was strong enough to turn the world upside down all alone, these women together ought to be able to turn it back and get it right side up again. And now that they're asking to do it, the men better let them." All right, that's a brief overview of just a few of the most influential early feminist writers. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.